Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, and welcome back to another show. In this episode, I'll be taking a look at the astrology of the week starting September 2. This is such a special week as Venus is going to station direct at 12 Leo, and that's going to happen on Sunday, September 3rd or Monday, September 4th, just depending on where you are in the world. We also have an uplifting trine aspect from the Sun in Virgo to Jupiter in Taurus. So there's lots of good stuff, at least astro-wise, to explore. Do you ever wonder what to say when an astrology client asks you about some of the good stuff in their chart? It's so common to focus on where issues or concerns might lie, but your birth chart is also full of little gems and clues about where contentment, joy, and meaning might be found. To help you explore some of the more uplifting areas of a chart, I've put together a special 3-part astrology course called Benefits and Blessings. And I have a code to help you save 10% off registration that I'm going to share later in the show. Now, that course might be even more appealing right now because the next live cohort starts on September 18. So if you want to learn new skills about working with Venus and Jupiter in the chart, and you'd like to connect live in the class Q&As, I'd invite you to join us. So I'm going to share the link and the code in the show notes and at the end of the show. So you'll have everything you need to sign up if that's of interest for you. So on to this first week of September. And first up is this station direct of Venus on September 3rd. And this is like the queen, this very regal, strong feminine energy. That's all Venus themes. It's like the queen is starting to regain her strength and skills. So when a planet stations direct, it's as if it's coming out of like a bad patch or a low vibe patch. A little bit like, when you get up out of bed after having been sick for a period of time. Now, just like you in that scenario, like if you imagine the last time you weren't well and you had to spend a few days in bed or on the couch, when you get up and you're like, oh, I think the worst has passed, you're not back to full capacity yet. And Venus is in that same state now. But it is an important turning point. It's that sense of, oh, I feel better, and you begin to resume regular activities. And that's Venus this week. Now, every day that we get further away from September 3, Venus is going to be a little bit stronger and a little bit more capable. So she sort of turns a corner on September 3rd, but say on September 6th, she's a little bit better than she was on the 3rd. And then a few days later, she's kind of better again. And then technically, every day further away from September 3 we go, Venus will also get a little faster and a little brighter in the morning sky. And they are two really important technical factors, speed and brightness, that enhance her effectiveness. So Venus has, made an important turning point. She's not back to full brilliance and brightness yet, but she's heading towards that. So hopefully you can get the nuance there of a shift happens and now we're heading in a direction where we've got a lot of this brightness and brilliance and pace and potential. That's what we're going towards. So Venus, if you like, is on the mend and on the rise. And that rise is quite literal. In the days and weeks to come, we're going to see her get, higher up in the morning sky, further away from the sun, which will make her brighter and kind of helps her stand in her own fullness, her own glory. So you might start to see some of the promise of Venus in Leo about better standards or respect for women, for instance, happening. That idea of Venus being on the mend and on the rise, we're starting to see better things for Venus things, better things for artists and creative people, better things for women and other marginalized groups. But in your personal life, you might start to see these inklings of change as well. And that may be tied to you and your actions as you start to put into play some of the realizations that you've gained in the last 6 weeks. Because one other important thing to remember is that this September 3rd station direct of Venus, it marks the start of Venus getting back on track, but it also marks the end of that 6-week retrograde period where Venus has been treading water, more introspective, and very much focused on review and reflection. So that process started back on July 22nd when Venus first stationed retrograde. And you might find it useful this week to reflect back on these last 6 weeks since late July. Think about what has this 6-week period been like for you? What has it been about? What topics or themes were you drawn towards? Did you find yourself focusing on? What did you notice that you didn't have a lot of energy or enthusiasm for? Was there an area of your life that really felt out of sorts or not like it usually is? And maybe in this last 6 weeks, as you reflect on that time frame, you might think about how you've shifted your priorities or needs about something as well. Of course, it's super exciting that Venus is direct and now returning to her regular programming and possibilities. But I don't want you to ignore the uniqueness of these last 6 weeks and the ways in which they may have helped you reorder something inside you, or maybe you've been focused on reordering something in your life at large. It's actually going to be 18 months from now until Venus goes retrograde again. So the renewal, the realization, the reflection of this last 6 weeks Venus retrograde period, it's kind of going to need to be enough for, the next 18 months until Venus goes retrograde again. And if you're wondering, well, when is the next Venus retrograde? We'll obviously be talking about that much more as we get closer. But just to give you a very early heads up, the next Venus retrograde will start in the sign of Aries, and we're not looking at that happening until March of 2025. So some of the reflections and the reordering that you've gone through in the past 6 weeks, in many ways, that's going to be your inspiration, your areas of exploration and improvement for the next 18 months. So that's something to keep in mind. For all of us, the Leo parts of our life are now going to start getting back on track. That is kind of an across the board given now that Venus is stationing direct, starting to move forward in the sign of Leo. So the Leo house in your personal chart, every day forward from September 3rd, it gets a little bit more satisfying. You get a little bit more clarity, or you get the chance to sort out something that's been puzzling or perplexing you over the past 6 weeks. I've got a couple of examples I want to share just to kind of guide you into that. Maybe you're a Libra rising chart and you have Leo on the 11th house of friendship. And maybe over this last 6 weeks, while Venus has been retrograde in your 11th house of friends, maybe your connections with a friend have been a bit hit and miss or been blowing a bit hot and cold. Maybe your interactions with a social group or a community connection have been disconnected or a bit weird. Maybe you've been missing each other, or maybe you haven't been acknowledged or received as warmly as you normally are. Now that Venus is back on track in your Leo 11th house, if you're a Libra rising, in the days and weeks to come, you might find that you can create new rituals together with a friend or with a social group. Maybe you're going to be exploring the changing needs of different friends and group connections. So that's what I mean by, we're kind of getting back on track, but we want some updates. We want some newness as we go forward from here. To give you another example, maybe you're a Taurus rising and Leo is the 4th house of home and family for you. And so this Venus retrograde in Leo, if you're Taurus rising, has been in your 4th house of home and family. And maybe it's been tricky or chaotic with family. Maybe there's been some crossed wires or clashes with people you live with, for instance. Maybe you've been trying to reorganize something to do with your home or your living situation, and it's been really tricky or a bit unpredictable to get things organized. Now that Venus is facing forwards, getting back on track, she's really ready to lead the charge. You might be able to resolve something that's been unsettled with a family member, or sort out that decision about your home or your living situation. And that could be something like, a furniture order you're trying to figure out, or a decorating thing. You might be trying to find different kinds of housing or living situations. So it can be, kind of smaller to larger experiences. But if you're a Taurus rising, that Venus retrograde in your Leo fourth house has been putting you in that deeper review process to do with family connections, parents, kids, partner, anyone that is in your sort of immediate family or connected to your childhood and upbringing, or people that you live with now. And then, of course, it's not just family, it's also home if it's fourth house for you. And so it's where you're living, what's going on in your living situation, whether you're renting or you own a place. There's perhaps been a lot of questions coming up about your housing. And now that Venus is back on track, you can make your choices and make your plans a little bit more smoothly and with a little bit more clarity. So do think about your personal Leo house in your chart and how that area of life is getting back on track with some improvements in the days and weeks ahead. One date to keep in mind when I look at just what's going on over the next kind of week or two for Venus, keep in mind September 11th. And that date looks particularly supportive for Venus in Leo in this post-retrograde period, because on that day we have the moon in Leo conjunct Venus. And so that is supportive. When the moon lends her light to a planet, she brings some clarity, some insight. She brings some connection and collaboration. And so when the moon comes to Venus in Leo just after she's stationed direct, that's September 11, be September 12 if you're in Australia. It can bring some of that clarity, some of that encouragement, and some of that support. So that's a very sweet pairing. It might help reveal a new connection or a new association that's going to help you out in that Leo part of your chart. It might also be a very early taste of some of the new good or better things based on what you've been doing through the review and upgrade time of the retrograde process. That moon with Venus in Leo, I think, can also help point the way towards more affectionate and enjoyable interactions with others. So it's really sort of like, this is why I've done all that. This is where we can go from here. And it's just that little bit of encouragement to keep going, to keep focusing on forward and future and where to next. So that's September 11, September 12 if you're in Australia, when the moon comes to Venus, who is newly stationed direct. And by then Venus will be at 13 Leo, so she'll be off her station degree. So she's just starting to get going again. So that's a little bit of a lovely little boost for Venus. So Venus stationing direct is definitely the big headline event, astrologically speaking, for the early part of September. But there's one other aspect that I wanted to add into this show just to give a little bit extra. And that is the Sun in Virgo trine Jupiter in Taurus. And the reason I want to mention this aspect, even if I just do it briefly, is that it's got vitality and practical support written all over it. So the Sun will trine Jupiter 15 degrees Virgo to 15 degrees Taurus. And that aspect arrives on Friday, September 8th. And it will be on Friday, September 8th in most locations. Now, a trine aspect involving Jupiter is one of the best types of aspects you can have. The trine aspect is of the nature of Jupiter. It has supportive, encouraging, amplifying qualities, and that's just in the trine aspect. But when you put the actual planet Jupiter into a trine aspect, that is like these double Jupiterian, double expansion themes that come forward. So with the Sun, which is the planet of light and vitality and life, getting a boost from Jupiter, this aspect on Friday, September 8th can really highlight growth and progress. It is absolutely expansive and it's got that potential to be uplifting. Currently, given that Jupiter is in Taurus, Jupiter's expansive qualities are grounded in practicality and simple ritual. So don't underestimate the cumulative benefit of little helpful things that you do regularly. There is, this isn't the kind of Sun Jupiter aspect that wants to see you kind of doing wild and super active things, but it is showing you the power of repetition and the idea that little things add up to big things over time. Now, in this particular Sun-Jupiter aspect, we've got the Sun and Jupiter kind of reaching out, supporting each other across two Earth signs. Sun in Virgo, as we said, Jupiter in Taurus. And so some of the benefits, some of the encouragement, and some of the support of this vitalizing aspect are going to show up around insights or, kind of help or support guidance to help you with managing your time and general matters of organization. Because we're in the earth element, we're in that kind of the element of matter and tangible things. Topics like managing money or financial planning might come up. Topics connected to stuff. Stuff can cover a wide range of things, clothing, books, games, technology, furniture, appliances. Those kinds of things are going to be highlighted. And you might gain some new wisdom around what you need and maybe just as importantly, what you don't need. With the Sun in Virgo linking to Jupiter, this could be like dreams of minimalism or having useful gadgets that do multiple things, but then not needing a lot of gadgets. It can also be about the habits that support reducing waste and excess, like exploring or connecting with the joy of simplicity, of tidiness, and of order. Some of you are going to hear this and think, oh gosh, that sounds a bit boring. And some of you are going to hear this and think, these are the things I love anyway. And that's the beauty of having these transiting aspects with the planets in different places, bringing themes or tendencies or ideas or dreams that we don't normally connect with. And even if this isn't your typical way of going about things, there's probably some benefit to exploring it as this Sun-Jupiter aspect becomes part of the astro weather for a period of time. It's sort of the nature of the time we're living in, around September 8th, is this simplicity, this minimalism, this ordering and organizing. So there's a lot of practical stuff that you can maybe get better at arranging with the Sun and Jupiter together in Earth signs. But on another level, the Sun and Jupiter are both planets of wisdom and divinity. And so connecting with your personal faith or philosophy is also possible as the Sun and Jupiter connect. You might find it particularly motivating or inspirational or uplifting to kind of tune back into those things that you believe or those big philosophical frameworks that guide your life. And of course, the Sun trine Jupiter, when Jupiter is naturally a planet about learning and wisdom, and the Sun is in a sign ruled by Mercury. Of course, the Sun is in Virgo. This is a great aspect for all kinds of learning and educational experiences. Whether you are a student trying to wrap your head around new theories or new techniques, or whether you're a teacher or a mentor or a guide wanting to support and share the wisdom and knowledge you have. So it's a beautiful aspect for learning and for education on all levels. In addition, the Sun and Jupiter can conspire to boost self-confidence and belief. That sense that you might have, hopefully you've had an experience of this, where you really truly know that you can do something, or at least you trust yourself enough that you're willing to give it a try. That's the Sun and Jupiter. It's sort of self-belief, I'm worthy of trying, I think I can, and I'm going to give it a shot. That is this sort of psychological state of the Sun and Jupiter. And so there is this quality of extending yourself or even trying something out that might be a little bit risky. I would imagine we're probably going to want a little bit of research and preparation because of the Earth nature and the Sun being in Virgo. So do your research, do a little bit of planning, and then give it a shot. If the Sun and Jupiter were connecting across fire signs, for instance, that's a little bit more impulsive, a little bit more spontaneous. So I do acknowledge the Earth element in this aspect of a little bit of information is going to be needed, but we still want that extension, that trying, that getting outside our comfort zone. That undertone of expansion and adventure of Jupiter is really trying to elevate your experiences, and it's trying to help you add this sort of rich, meaningful quality to life. Sometimes when we hear that, we think it has to be major and totally life-changing. But that's where I call you back to those ideas of little things that we do that add up to kind of great benefits over time. That's what this one really feels like, this Sun-Jupiter aspect with the Earth nature and Virgo involved. So we can get that rich, meaningful quality now from not rushing, from having enough time or having enough things, but not drowning in things, if you like. And you probably know that the idea of having this really meaningful, rich, sort of expansive life, we can help activate that by stepping outside our comfort zone occasionally. And, being outside a place of familiarity is where we learn and we grow and we discover. And so this Sun Jupiter aspect is really encouraging that extension. It's sort of like an invitation to go into slightly unfamiliar territory and see how it goes. You might be a little bit nervous. Maybe you've got that nervous excitement, but this aspect really is a great one for going for it. I know you will often hear me say, trine aspects to Jupiter like this, they're almost like getting a cosmic green light, like say yes to something. So that's what this aspect on Friday is saying, like give it a shot, say yes, give it a try, especially if it has been on your mind for a while, whether it's a plan for the future, whether it's an organizational matter, whether it's a streamlining, simplifying goal kind of under the minimalism piece, just give it a shot, see how it goes. So those themes there are a little bit about how you can tap into the astro on offer this week. We've got the Venus stationing direct and the changes with her cycle and potential, definitely good. And we've also got that helpful Sun Jupiter trine aspect. I love sharing these tips with you, and I will continue to do so through the podcast each week. But if you would like to learn more about how to work with Jupiter and Venus more deeply, either in your own chart or in terms of how the current themes of Venus and Jupiter might be showing up, I'd invite you to check out that Benefits and Blessings course. In it, you'll learn about these special aspects linked to Venus and Jupiter. You'll also learn how to work with both the terms or bounds and the houses of Venus and Jupiter in your chart to kind of really tap into extra joy and meaning. You can save 10% off the registration until September 10, and the code to use is BB10. So that's a sort of a shortening of Benefits and Blessings. So the code capital B, numeral 1, numeral 0. I'm going to put it in the show notes below. I know for sure, I'm guilty of this myself, and I see it happening with students all the time, that it is all too easy to use astrology to focus on managing problems or understanding challenges. But I really believe it's important to understand how to enhance the good and the joy in our lives as well. And that's what Jupiter and Venus help us with. So in this 3-part training, you'll learn all about how to go deeper with Venus and Jupiter to see what they have in store for you. So I'm going to pop the link to register below, and that code again is BB10. If you're on the website and you just want to navigate into the course, here's the tips on how to do so. From the homepage at kellysastrology.com, select Learn Astrology tab from the main menu, then go to Course Catalog and just scroll down until you find the Benefits and Blessings course. I hope to see you in class if that's the right option for you at this point in time. And either way, I so appreciate you joining me for these shows each week. And I'll be back to share more about what's happening in the second week of September next week. Until then, take care.